Yo, what's cracking everyone? Ericship 111 here. So, for those who play Forza Horizon 5, will know that as of right now, Series 29 Community's Choice is live, and although this update is to be a collection of some of the most exciting updates the game has had in the past, all put into one, there is, however, 8 new cars that can be earned throughout this monthly series. However, all of the quote-unquote new to Forza Horizon 5 cars aren't actually new at all. In fact, almost every car that's been introduced in Series 29 were already featured back in Forza Horizon 4. And for these exact same cars to finally appear in Horizon 5 again after 2 years later as new content truly shows the ongoing drip feeding problem the Forza Horizon series has, and I worry it could very well become a lot worse as newer titles get released. I mean, if we take a look back from Horizon 1, which launched in 2012, through to Horizon 3, which was released in 2016, within the 4-year span through 3 different titles, you could easily argue that each game's car list continuously grew bigger with very little omissions that were truly noticeable. Sure, perhaps in Horizon 1 we did get a lot more cars missing that never made it to Horizon 2 onwards, like the Lexus LFA Nürburgring Edition, SSC Ultimate Aero, the Gumpert Apollo Enraged, just to name a few, but I can forgive them as Playground Games actually built a new game from the ground up with Horizon 2, and the jump, especially in visual fidelity, was nothing but incredible. It wasn't until 2018, when the launch car list was revealed with Horizon 4, that players started to notice that the cars missing from Horizon 3 was quite a substantial amount, and this time many players within the community didn't quite understand why this was the case, as both Horizon 3 and Horizon 4 were built sharing essentially the same Forza Tech engine. Fast forward to the launch of Horizon 4 and we began to see our first glimpses of drip feeding recycled content already that for the most part flew under the radar to most, and it all started with the wheel spin. For those who perhaps didn't play Forza Horizon 4, Playground Games did something rather annoying. What they did was place some very cool cars from Horizon 3's car list, whether they were part of the game's launch or released as a DLC car later, as exclusive wheel spin rewards only. Cars like the 2004 Subaru Impreza WRX STI, Lamborghini Aventador SV, the Honda Civic Type R EP3, just to name a few, were essentially locked, and the only way to get them, if we exclude the auction house, was through a randomized wheel spin. And because Forza Horizon 4 was the first title to also include full character customization, what made obtaining these cars even more frustrating was that each wheel spin was completely infested with clothing items, making these cars almost impossible to obtain. So what did you have to do to get these cars? Well, keep playing the game as much as you can, rack up those wheel spins, and eventually you will either win enough clothing items that the odds of obtaining these wheel spin reward exclusives become greater, or be incredibly lucky. Most certainly a game design that didn't sit very well with the community, as well as cause confusion, because a sizable amount of players did ask where were some of these cars from Horizon 3, not knowing that they already existed in Horizon 4, but just hidden behind an RNG element. Several months later, Playground Games would introduce a feature that would change the entire Forza Horizon series forever, and that was the festival playlist in Series 7. Now, the idea of the festival playlist was to create a brand new interface that will allow players to track all of their monthly progress, as well as get players to participate in weekly activities and challenges so that players can be rewarded with the most desirable of cars that the game offers. Initially, this sounded like a great idea. As a consumer, it gave a proper structure for players to follow, and it also allowed players a chance to obtain something very exclusive in-game, whether it's for the week or for the entire month, and in return, the developers will have a very healthy player base each week. Unfortunately, as new updates went by, the rate in which new to Forza cars being introduced started slowing down, and we began to see the rise of returning cars missing from Horizon 3, including some from Horizon 2, along with the Forza Motorsport series. And this was where the true drip feeding problem in the Forza series began. You see, the way in which we obtain a new to Forza car compared to a recycled car that is being reintroduced back in is the exact same. You still have to dedicate roughly the same amount of time to obtain either of the rewards, and of course, the majority of us are still going to do them because, well, they're essentially exclusive time-walled content. We have no idea when these cars will be available for us to obtain again, but the issue I have is, why should I spend the same amount of time for a car that I have experienced in an older Forza title that shouldn't have been removed in the first place, and some were even available to purchase directly through the auto show at launch, as opposed to a new to Forza car that we are actually excited to complete the festival playlist for. This whole drip feeding problem also robs players of some of their favorite cars that they were perhaps looking forward to driving around in a totally new environment. But sadly, some players may now have to wait a year or two before they can even begin to enjoy some of their most beloved cars in the latest Horizon installment. Now, looking back in hindsight with the drip feeding of recycled cars in Horizon 4, it wasn't monumentally terrible, as the developers also tried to include a sizable collection of cars from multiple Forza titles too, some even dating back to Forza Motorsport 4. And it also pales in comparison to what Playground Games did with Forza Horizon 5. Do you know, out of the total cars from Horizon 4, how many of them didn't make it to Horizon 5 at launch? 198. Just from their last title, not an accumulation of all the Horizon games combined. To me, that is just completely unacceptable. There's no reason for this many cars that was only just featured in their last game to not make it in Horizon 5. The plot of deliberately removing these cars only to slowly drip feed it back on a weekly basis throughout the game's lifespan is a very cheap way for Playground Games to get players to hop on and play their game. This idea of artificially adding rarity to vehicles that had already existed in the franchise before should be completely frowned upon, and to me is not what the festival playlist was initially intended for. Putting recycled cars as a reward to earn totally destroys the fun out of the game. For many of the weeks we hop on, we put in our time, and for what? A car we had already driven before? But guess what, if we don't, you may not get the car again, because who knows when you will get a chance to obtain them next. Not only does this make the developers look lazy, but it also oversaturates the player's Horizon experience. I find that the developers, and I'm not just talking about Playground Games, it's pretty much modern gaming with live service in general. Gaming studios and publishers are so fixated about player count on their game that they almost neglect the user's experience as a gamer. So they employ cheap tactics through FOMO or fear of missing out by locking a bunch of content behind a time wall so it can be classified as exclusive. And in Horizon 5's case, a lot of them are reused content. What happened to actually making games where no egregious tactics were used to boost the player's engagement or player count? Not too long ago, studios used to focus on trying to create the most fun, challenging, but yet incredibly rewarding games that would provide such a unique gaming experience that players willingly wanted to be a part of. Forza Horizon 1 through to Horizon 3 were great examples of this. I can say I've probably spent more total hours on Horizon 5 than Horizon 3, but without a doubt, all of my hours on Horizon 3 have been way more fun than they were with Horizon 5. Sometimes I also think the reason why Forza Horizon 5's map feels boring is not necessarily because of its overall design, but maybe because every week I have to do these challenges and races for the fear of missing out on one of these recycled cars that I didn't really want to do in the first place. If the reward I'm getting at the end is not fulfilling, chances are neither will the process be too. It almost feels like a job sometimes. Look, I get it, producing new to Forza cars on a monthly basis is just not possible, but when we look at some of the past updates like the 10-year anniversary or the first Donut Media update, to even now with Series 29, where all of the new cars were essentially just recycled cars from Horizon 4 being drip fed, something has to change. Firstly, stop robbing players of their favourite cars from previous titles. Secondly, not every week throughout the festival playlist has to have a new content to earn. I'm much happier having those 198 cars all available at launch and having certain weeks throughout the year where I can literally just hop on Horizon 5 because I want to, as opposed to having those 198 cars from Horizon 4 completely omitted so that I must jump on each week, do the required tasks and challenges because of FOMO and ultimately overexposing myself to the game. Now, since we are in our third year of Horizon 5, perhaps Forza Horizon 6 is just around the corner, and I worry that things could get even worse, not just with cars, but now race routes. Recently, Playground Games have experimented with introducing new races in Horizon 5, which are totally brand new, and it seems to be received with a lot of positive feedback by the community. Now, where this can backfire, at least to us, is that maybe once Forza Horizon 6 launches, Playground Games may scale back on the amount of race routes the game will launch with, and then throughout each festival playlist update, they will then drip feed a new race route each week or every month, saying, look, we made a new race for you, when in reality it was all completed throughout development. It's concerning to think that this scenario is even a possibility, and I haven't even touched on the new Forza Motorsport. For a reboot that took 6 years to make, how can hundreds upon hundreds of cars from Motorsport 7 be missing in the new game? Now look, if the cars were taken away to be completely remodeled, or perhaps had new additions included such as customizations, okay, fair enough. But so far, none of them have been. Just recently, Turn 10 posted up an image of the McLaren 650S, saying, here's a new car reward once you complete the new career series. And I'm just thinking to myself, why do I even want to bother? There were even comments saying, why am I working 3 hours for a car that is 9 years old? And I totally agree, and that's not even mentioning the horrendous AI you race against, as well as the limited amount of tracks the game currently has too. Also, the fact that at some point drag racing and drift lobbies will probably return too is nothing but another way of drip feeding content just to get players excited for essentially something that should have been available all from the very beginning. And the sad reality is, at times this actually works. Even I'm guilty of feeding this new modern way of video games. But with the Forza series, I believe the time of drip feeding content is turning. Forza Motorsport isn't just bad because of the bugs and glitches. The truth is, if the game had enough content from the very beginning, a lot of players could easily look past all of that and still play the game. But when you remove hundreds of cars from the previous title, remove multiple iconic tracks, only for it to be drip fed back in, using these cheap tactics just to get players to jump on, even slapping an artificial rarity on cars like the McLaren 650S or the Lamborghini Sesto Elemento, aren't enough to get players' engagement, and rightfully so. Playground Games, if you're watching, don't make the same mistakes with Forza Horizon 6 like Turn 10 did with the Forza Motorsport reboot. In fact, don't even make the same mistakes you guys did with the launch of Horizon 5. Saving recycled content and then drip feeding them only goes so far before the community sees right through it. And once the majority does, chances are your game will never fully recover. Even with Horizon 5, the stain of the incredibly lackluster recycled field first year still lingers. Start Forza Horizon 6 strong. The point of a new game is to make it bigger and better than the last, and more importantly, we want it to be fun. Make us work for the new cars that we have yet to experience, and let us enjoy the cars you have introduced in the past freely. I mean, don't you think it's insane to think that cars like the Pagani Huayra, Lykan Hypersport, the GTA Spania, Mercedes-Benz 280 SL can only be driven now, 2.5 years later after the launch of Horizon 5, when all of these cars were featured back in Horizon 4, and some even dating back to Forza Horizon 3, which is over 6 or 7 years ago. But anyways, what do you guys think about Forza's drip feeding problem? Will you care if this happens in Forza Horizon 6? How would you change it if you were in charge? Share us your thoughts down in the comment section below, as I do read all of your comments, guys. If you guys did enjoy today's video, please make sure to smash the thumbs up button, as it really does help me out. And of course, if you guys would like to stay up to date with everything Forza related, be sure to subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.